one player that I think is well worth a mention, I think, was Josh Hawke. So I thought second half was absolutely excellent. I thought he was getting down the left, and it was one of those games where you really rooting for him because your wingers actually having a go at their defence. There was one superb run he did for about 30-yard run, dribble past a couple, and then drilled a shot towards the top corner. It was saved. Obviously, he set up the goal. Absolutely my man of the match. The one player who offensively was really trying to make things happen second half. And I know that this has been discussed on various news shows about whether Hawks will be moving on in the summer. And I think I put as my man of the match comment, please don't sell him, because I think we've been chronically devoid of ideas going forward this year. I think offensively we've been terrible. And there we've got a winger who I think is developing and is becoming a better player. And I thought he was absolutely our best attacking outlet yesterday. And for me, was certainly where the goal was most likely to come from. And that's where it proved. I know that their manager had a moan afterwards because one of their players, unfortunately, pulled up. He did his hamstring and we carried on playing. But yeah, for me, Josh was the one player who was looking to get on the ball yesterday. I thought it was an excellent performance. I thought it was what we want to see more of from him. Just a desire to get on the ball, to attack the fullback, cut inside, look for a pass. So yeah, he's somebody who I really hope that we get to see next year in a white shirt. And if we sell him, then you've got to wonder whether we're going to be even worse to watch next season. And we've set the bar pretty low at times this season.
Well, the only way the development project's going to work is if we do sell players like Hawks, right?
I suppose that's true. And I'd be very disappointed. But then, if we replace him with a worldie, who we somehow pluck from National League South, where everyone else is overlooked, and he creates 15 goals and scores 12 himself, then suddenly we look like geniuses. The development model as is, I would say, has been not a huge success this season. There's everyone talking about, are we going to sell Ethan Bristow? But apart from him, I remember you did the right back in August, or you did a news show with you spoke to a guy from Reading about Ethan Bristow, a guy from up from north of the border about Reece McAleer, and there was a third player, I think. And you have to say, Bristow, yeah, I think he's absolutely been a success, and he's a quality left back at this level. But McAleer has disappeared, hasn't he? We've sent him back to Scotland. Hockenhull was the other one, wasn't he? And we've seen him. I think those fans who are brave enough to attend the Pizza Cup might have seen him. The vast majority of us haven't. So you have to say that the development model has not been an unqualified success. And I know these things take time, but we've been less Exeter and more Grimsby this season, I would suggest.
It's interesting because obviously we don't want to see Josh Hawks leave Tranmere, for an example. But the whole project, and this is where we're getting into waters way beyond talking about the Wimbledon game, but this is where the patience of a football fan is really tested when they see a good player come through or develop at their club, and then that not necessarily the first opportunity, but when an opportunity comes, that player is sold. That money's not necessarily going to be reinvested into the first team. Tranmere made a worse team for it. And it goes back to that old thing that Les Parry said, and he got mocked for it. And I think it was his wording that was slightly wrong, but it was the premise is basically what Tranmere are trying to carry out now, is that he said he didn't want people who wanted to play for Tranmere Rovers. He wanted people who wanted to play at a much higher level than Tranmere Rovers. And basically what he meant was he wanted people to come and put themselves in the shop window and then move on to bigger and better things, which the likes of Aaron Cresswell and Dale Jennings to an extent did. But that is something that football fans generally don't want. They don't want to see their club as a feeder team or a stepping stone for other players to get into higher rungs of the ladder. They want those players to help their team on to those higher rungs of the ladder. And if Tranmere are going to sell players, then the likelihood is that they're probably not going to move up the ladder as quick as we would like them to.
Yeah, and it is a project. I think Exeter quite clearly had a project, and again, geographically they have a huge advantage. Exeter's probably the closest football league club to me now, and I mean the Southwest is just a footballing wasteland. It's been talked about before. It's yes, I know Plymouth have got to the Championship. Some might say long overdue. A port town like that, what and a one club town with a decent fan base, a club that you would say always had Championship potential, but apart from Plymouth, there's no one really around there, you know. So for Exeter, they were able to develop that by bringing in lots of talent from local areas, and they did it very, very well. And of course, you think of Exeter selling players onto Brentford, and of course, Brentford introduced a similar model themselves. But again, you're in London, and I know there's a lot of London clubs, but there's also a lot of people. So there's always going to be opportunities there to pick out players. Whereas we, as has been well documented, we're in a situation where if we try to introduce that kind of model, a 14-year-old kid has got the opportunity to come to Tranmere or to basically stink it out in the reserves at Liverpool or Everton. Well, they're going to go there. So it's very, very difficult. It's very difficult. And I think that I don't envy Mark Palios' job at the moment with the choice of manager. I think that he has a checkered track record with picking managers. I think there's obviously Mickey Adams was a disaster. Keith Hill, I think, actually would have got us promoted if James Vaughan was fit. I'm absolutely convinced that season we were going up. Until Vaughan got injured, I just think we would have gone up. But behaved like, pardon my French, behaved like a bit of a twat, alienated the fan base. So you can't really call him a success. You know, Mike Jackson was a flop. You go through, and in terms of actual tangible success on the field, the only manager that Mark has got right so far is Mickey Mellon. And I know that Mark has said that it's hard to judge success purely on promotion because by that yardstick, only 4 teams in League Two this season will have had what you call a good season, the 4 that go up.